And that is a part of what, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the video that I saw, the case against the Jedi, you talk about like the shallow, short-sighted nature of discourse right now. Mm-hmm. And also you mentioned something about modern audiences and their tastes. And I don't know if their tastes are just uninformed. Mm-hmm. That I think that, especially in the podcasting world, there is a desire for deeper discussion. Mm-hmm. It's clear, you know, if a guy like Jordan Peterson can fill out the O2 Arena in London just to talk, I mean, that shows you that people want more.
True, but how, you know, what number of people are going to that kind of event as opposed to people who are contributing to Kylie Jenner's billionaire fund? Mm-hmm. You know, like
there's an aspect of that too. Yeah.
So it's
but that's what I get back to as far as like the uninformed populace that has grown up in this shallow world. I don't think that's their taste is theirs in a way.
They don't know better.
It's to put it a certain way. Yeah.
Like one of the biggest things that I think...
Or they just haven't been exposed.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I think I've realized at a certain point in my young adulthood was that most people are so ignorant that they don't know that they're ignorant. Or to put it a little bit differently is that they're so dumb they don't know they're dumb. And it's not their fault. You know, if you get raised in a particular environment with a particular family and you had a particular life circumstances, that's your worldview. And it's mostly not your fault that you're like that. Mm-hmm. So all the younger people who idolize Instagram people or influencers or shit like that on social media who are just famous for looking pretty or doing dumb shit, you know, it's not these kids' fault that this is what it's turned into. It's just
their parents' fault.
Yeah, it's the world that they know.
Yeah.
So, you know, when Jackass first became popular, and people started doing stunts and all this crazy shit to get noticed. And that's what I think the bigger issue is people wanting to be famous, people wanting to, you know, they idolize that kind of celebrity. Mm-hmm. And now social media has the ability to...
It allows
you to experience some sort of fame. Mm-hmm. And people just try to go to that. They don't try to enrich themselves. They just want people to notice them and they get fake validation over the internet.
Because everyone has a TV station now.
Yep.
Everyone has a radio station if they want it.
Yep.
They can be that person. Anyone can. So I saw this video, the case against the Jedi, and the pseudoscientist YouTube kid who made it is arguing that the Jedi are, you know, basically chauvinists, and by proxy, so is George Lucas, because he created this man-centric worldview. But I was so disturbed because I understand that that this guy saw this in the characters, and I would agree with you. I would say the Jedi are short-sighted and dogmatic. Mm-hmm. But literally the end of the movie is Luke accepting his emotions and changing everything.
Well, that's and one issue that, you know, I don't know, because again, he was trying to prove a point. So he's going to cherry pick certain things out of the film that accentuate the points he's trying to make. But
well, I don't know if he's so driven by that. I think he just hears what's being talked about in the discourse right now and thinks he gets it. Mm-hmm. And you're not thinking critically. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, but to that end, you know, he's going to pick, you know, when he's looking over things, he's looking for things.
What he wants to hear.
He's looking for things that enforce what he thinks he gets.
Certainly.
And he might not see the bigger picture that they're telling, which, I mean, again, this is a movie.
But it's simplistic, though, too.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about how simplistic it is, that's the point. Let me read you what I wrote, because for some reason you couldn't see the comment. I wrote to this guy on YouTube, which I've yet to receive a response, buddy.
Considering he put it out 7 months ago originally.
Don't you get a notice, though?
Yeah.
You have a comment, a really long comment from an old dick who wants to talk shit about your video. I wrote, you're correct in arguing that Jedi created Vader. They created him because of them telling him to suck it up, basically. You know? I said, but how can you stop short by not acknowledging that it was Luke's love that allowed Anakin to complete his journey as the chosen one? He brings balance to the Force. The Sith, who are really just a shadow of the Jedi's perverted dogma set loose, are now gone. Luke has redefined the Jedi by acknowledging his inherent emotions. Where I believe this guy is mistaken is assuming that George Lucas is a sexist. And he's not. He's a storyteller. He creates stories populated with characters that exhibit specific traits to tell an overall story. Because the Jedi are an emotion-bashing boys' club doesn't make George Lucas a sexist. Their behavior is necessary to the story, a story that, when broken down, is as simple as a hippie kid, Lucas. I mean, the character's name is Luke, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Lucas, you might as well just call him Lucas, discovering that the dogmatic, narrow worldview of his father is destructive and violent, and learns to cultivate his emotions and reconstruct the world with love. And that you can't find a more allegorical story for the 1960s and 70s than that. I mean, that is what that generation did. They looked at their father's Stoicism and they said, we don't want to be that. And we're going to change it.
So there was a couple issues that I had with some of the things that he said in the video. So, and one thing that I wanted to point out that you said about, like, so bringing the balance back to the Force and getting rid of the Sith. From my understanding, that's what's throwing the Force out of balance, because the Sith and the Jedi are both part of the Force. You have the light, which is the Jedi, and the dark, which are the Sith, but it is still a balance of the two. So when I was reading up about The Last Jedi is supposed to, from my perspective, was supposed to be Luke. Rey's not supposed to be a Jedi. She's gonna be in between. She's gonna know that there's certain things that both sides have that can be used in positive or negative ways. It's different elements of human emotions. We have positive and negative emotions. And what's the term? Hell is paved with good intentions, or something like that. So the Force was out of balance because there was only like 3 Siths and a couple hundred Jedi, and that, it was a very dogmatic view of what the Force should be, and that was throwing everything off kilter. Now it's much closer to being balanced. So I think there's a deeper philosophical meaning behind that, besides just getting rid of the bad guys. You
see, I think the Sith
because
are
you're right,
just the Jedi let loose.
Yeah, well, they're the opposite of the Jedi.
Well, not even that. I think they are Jedis who, and you can even take this as an example of our extremist world that we live in right now. They are the ones that are completely rejecting what the Jedi do, and they do the complete opposite, but they are literally, they're informed by what a Jedi is. And then they go, I'm not going to let go of I'm not going to contain my emotions. And so much so that it corrupts me,
Well, and that's the thing, that corruption, that dark side is just the opposite of the light that the Jedi think.
In a shadow sense. And that's what I meant by the shadow of the Jedi.
Yeah.
That is their shadow that they can't shake, that philosophical precept of the shadow.
But both of these elements, this light and dark.
Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna let you. Just to hear that audio.
Took a piss into a glass.
Yeah, it was pretty disturbing, but good for you.
It smells like bourbon too.
Yes, we got.
I think I have a problem.
Oh no. Okay, so quick caveat. I took a drug test in Fort Gordon when I first joined the Army, and it was a piss test. And for whatever reason, it was brown. Like, it looked like that. So I brought it out, and the guy was really nervous. The guy was like, God damn, if this doesn't look like this came out of a still somewhere. And I'm like, well, I am from Kentucky. He just lost his shit.
Pass.
Yeah,
You win.
He thought he loved it. But yeah, so you have these positive and negative emotions, positive and negative experience, or that is the human experience. And the Jedi is like, if you take the positive too far, the Sith are if you take the negative too far. But the key is a balance. That's what the balance is about. And in the books, and I haven't read the books, but I know a little bit about the mythology, there's like the gray Jedi, right? So they're in between the Sith and the Jedi. They take different attributes from both sides because it is a balance of light and dark. Everywhere in the universe, if you have too much light, it throws everything off. You have too much dark, it throws everything off. And they are like the middlemen, and they have a different, there's a whole, mythos and philosophies that are put up online that they supposedly believe in. But those are the people who realize that you can't go too far one way. It has to be a balance. That's what the Force is. It is a balance. So that's what I was thinking that this movie is trying to set up. Luke is supposed to be the last Jedi. That's why Rey is flirting with the dark side so much. And Kylo is, floating with, They don't really ever say the light side, do they? They say the dark side of the Force.
He says he's being pulled to the light.
Oh, the light. Okay.
He does.
Okay. So you have the dark
Which
side.
is fucking asinine.
Yeah.
Everyone is in the light. You get pulled to the dark side. Like, people are inherently good. Most of them.
That's up to interpretation.
And they feel, I mean, you feel like, you know, when you're doing bad things. You don't think about when you're doing good things. You know, like, you know when you're doing bad.
Well, good and bad is also very
Like,
subjective.
oh man, I almost helped the old lady cross the street today.
I can't believe I did that.
What was I thinking?
But
you know, like,
you can do good things for the wrong reasons, and it can be obsessive and compulsive, and that's one of the things. So, like, you know, when he's talking in the video about like when Anakin was crying and stuff, and it was shown to be a weakness when he was crying of his character. I don't think that at all. I don't think it was a weakness because he was crying. It was a weakness because that is something that can be used against him. You know, same thing with Luke. You know, when they talk about expressing the emotions, it's not because it's a character flaw. It's just because if you cling too strongly, if you obsess over that, it can be used against you and it can be something very negative. And one of the issues that I had with him talking about Stoicism is that a lot of people, and I'm not an expert, but the books that I've read by experts have showed that the idea that a lot of people have of Stoicism isn't actually what Stoicism is. It isn't about suppressing emotions. It's not about not feeling emotions. It's about analyzing your emotions and understanding how most of the things you think and feel cause you more suffering. In turn, it is bad for you. Even positive things, because again, you can obsess over positive things or want, you know, good things, and it causes more
and chase those positive feelings.
And then when you fail, it's 10 times worse, as opposed to just dealing with what is, you know? So Stoicism isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about understanding why you feel the way you feel, and understanding that a lot of the things you think and feel are pretty much bullshit and cause you more suffering than you really need. And it's really about getting to the core of what makes you you. So but the thing is when you get to a certain point and when you realize how much bullshit there actually is, you do kind of take on a persona where you're just like, oh, what the fuck ever, you know, just like, okay, because you're just dealing with things as they are. You're not trying to extrapolate them in theory in your mind. You know, it's a different thing to say, like, let's say you get hurt or you get sick. There's a difference between saying, like, let's say I fucked my leg up. There's a difference between saying this hurts as opposed to, oh no, I'm never going to be able to walk again. I'm going to lose my job because I'm not going to be able to do my job anymore. My wife's going to leave me because of whatever. It's all these extra things that we put into our mind that isn't actually the thing that's happening. You're not just dealing with the pain. You're dealing with what the pain could mean. And that is maybe even worse when you're thinking about positive things. You know, you think, okay, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to do this, that. And then something happens where you got to stop going to school. You know,
all your plans are
ruined.
Yeah.
And now you're a failure. And now you're never going to live up to whatever. And it's just all this extra.
Because you set that up for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not leaning one way or the other. It's just dealing with what is.
Do you know the Taoist precept of we shall see? Have you heard of that story?
I haven't heard the story.
It's I can paraphrase a little bit of it. It says like this family in China, this feudal family farming in China had a son, and he was thrown from a horse and he breaks his leg.
Yeah.
And everybody in the village goes, "Oh man, it's terrible! Look, he's got a broken leg now.
What's he gonna do?
What's he gonna do? I mean, will it heal right? Will he be able to farm anymore? He won't be able to help you." And then the father says, "We shall see." And then the army comes through town conscripting young people
for a war.
Yeah. And they're like, "Well, we're not gonna take him. He's got a broken leg." And everyone goes, "Oh, how great is that? His leg was broken and he won't go die in the war. We shall see." And such and over and over again.
Yeah.
I love that concept, and I try to live my life that way. Whenever I get overwhelmed by things, or whenever I feel like I can't get my head around something, I always return to we shall see.
That overwhelmness is most of the time 100% in your mind.
Absolutely.
It's the narrative that you create about the situation, not the actual situation.
And we shall see helps me get past that.
Yeah, it's good or bad. You're just living with what is happening.
It drives my wife nuts too. Like something good happens, and I say, we shall see.
well, and here's the thing, that doesn't, and that's another misconception about Stoicism, because it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy things, and it doesn't mean you can't be sad. It's just that understanding that
temper it a little bit.
It's temporary, and it's these feelings. Again, if you cling to them or you obsess over them, just make your existence worse. Even the good things. Like if things are going really great, you're like, this is amazing. And you're just like manic.
You're setting yourself up for a fall.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up for a fall. So you enjoy it when it happens. And then when it's gone, it doesn't make a difference, you know? Yeah. And there was one part in this video where he talks about, when Yoda tells him not to be sad about, losing.
Rejoice in those who transform into the Force.
Yeah, that's not saying suck it up and be happy. That's just saying that appreciate the things that you have when you have them. And when you're gone, accept that they're gone. That doesn't mean you're not going to miss that person. That doesn't mean you don't still love that person. It just means you're not obsessing over the fact that they're gone. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a different thing to say, I miss this, or I miss them. Mm-hmm. Or as opposed to, I'm never going to be happy again. Mm-hmm. I can't live without them. My life's never going to be the same. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference between just saying, oh man, like you have a memory like, oh, I really miss them. And you just live in that little bit of sadness, but you don't think about... You don't
say, my life is forever changed and it sucks.
And you don't think about all the things that could have been. You just deal with the miss, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, and that's...
That'll eat you up. I remember when my dad died, like, my daughter was 3 months old. And justifiably, I was thinking, he's never going to get to see anything of her, my firstborn kid. Mm-hmm. And she's never going to know... basically the person who was God in my life. You know what I mean? My father. So it's easy to wallow in those things.
Yeah. And in the teaching there, like the whole idea of non-attachment isn't that you shouldn't feel things. It's just that you shouldn't depend on those things for your happiness or your well-being or your sadness. Like with Buddhism and stuff like that, it's not that you're not going to feel these things. It's not that you're not going to be happy or be sad, or especially with Stoicism. It's just that understanding that everything has its place. Be happy when you're happy, be sad when you're sad, but just let it be then.
Yeah.
Don't let it continue to eat you up. Especially so in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, there's a part where he's like, every day when you kiss your child, think to yourself that you could be dead tomorrow. And that's not to be some weird shock tactic.
Not morbid.
Yeah, it's just to say, enjoy this time when you have it and appreciate it now, because too many people live in the future or live in the past, and they're not able to do good now.
I find myself constantly reminding myself to do that, because I definitely live in the future or in the past far too often.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean you can't make plans. It just means don't depend on those plans for happiness when they haven't happened yet. So many people get set up and, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And
when I get there, then I'll be happy.
Yeah. And Alan Watts has a big spiel about like going through your life. Like, okay, you go through school, and then once you complete your primary school, you go to college. And then once you get your degree, you get another degree, and then you get a good job. And then you got to work your way up the ladder until you become a director or a CEO. And now you're 50 years old, and you look back at your life and you think, where did it go? And you're not happy at all because you've wasted so much time. And because you were expecting a certain outcome, you were expecting to be happy. And through that expectation, you forgot how to be happy when it counted, which is the rest of your life.
I was spending a lot of time right now. I own a business. Mm-hmm. And so...
Is this different from the real estate?
No. Okay. Yeah. So that's my business. And I've been trying to define what success is. Because the way that I see success is that you start a business, doing it yourself, basically. Mm-hmm. You get to a point where you get too many jobs to do it yourself, and then you hire people, pay them almost nothing, lower the quality of your product, and stop working. And that's success. Mm-hmm. I was like, is that really success? Like, is that what I want to do? Is that my goal? Is to create something and then lesser the product and pay someone minimum wage to do it?
Well, it might afford you a better quality.
But what am I doing? What in the world? Like, what am I adding to the world? And even my self-worth. So I've been trying to define that. Like, what is success? Is it more work, or is it just enough work? Enough to meet my needs and to do a job that I don't hate going to, mm-hmm. and to afford me time to be in my children's life. All these things.
I think so. There's a couple interesting things regarding that. Like, my ideas about success, I don't really have any, because I think it's all bullshit. It's bullshit that from a society that's developed over time, and we've created certain value for certain things, monetary value and possessional value. And I'm not trying to say I don't like nice things, but our whole worldview is based on, a very capitalistic mentality. And there's nothing wrong with that.
But it says that if you're not making more all the time, then you're a failure.
Exactly.
Which is unsustainable.
Yeah.
It's crash and burn. I mean, it's like profit and then crash all the time.
Yeah. And the things that we chase have been ingrained in us for so long that we don't really know any other alternative. We think we have to go to school. We have to make a certain amount of money to be a valuable member of society. We have to do certain things. None of this really makes us happy. But we're pursuing this because we're trained to believe that's what it is, and it never comes, and we're always lost and we're always confused.
Then we get a M16 and kill 90 people from a hotel window.
And and you just break down.
I wonder what happened to him. We golfed at the same clubs and we worked at the same job, and how could that happen?
Because it's all bullshit that we've been fed that has little to no meaning. It sets up society the way it is, and one could argue that society is good or bad. I think it's bullshit. We can compare it to whatever and say, oh yeah, this is the best it could be. We don't really know because this is all we've done.
Only by comparison.
Yeah, this is all we've done. We don't know if we don't know what could be better because this is what we've known for so long. There's a philosophy that some samurai used. I forget who, but basically, it was. I'm going to butcher this thought, but basically the idea is you can't control the circumstance that you're put into, but you can live in that circumstance in a meaningful way. So samurai were predominantly Buddhist, which is a non-violent religion. All right. And they did
incredibly violent.
And they did some of the most violent things. And one of the, it's a little bit of a cop out, I'll admit. But one of the things that they used to justify it is this is the society I was born into, and I'm doing my part, and I'm doing the part that I can do. This is what I can do. This is what I'm going to do it, however I can do it, or the best I can do it, whatever. And this I'm just
often in defense of people.
Yeah. So it's that was one way of accepting their circumstance. There's another Japanese philosophy. I think it's called. Again, I'm going to butcher this word, Akigai or something, and it's your life's meaning. And basically, it says, or how to bring meaning to your life. And basically, it says you need to find something that you enjoy doing, that you can potentially make money doing, that can that the world needs. And then there's one other descriptor there. And the combination, if you find something that fits all those boxes, is the optimal thing you can do with your life. I don't necessarily believe that that's a perfect model, but I think it's a good idea because we have to acknowledge we do live in a particular society. We have to have a job or we're going to be homeless. We're not going to be able to survive. And I've met homeless people that have been very happy and they can pull it off, if you can still manage certain resources because you still got to be able to feed yourself and be relatively healthy. Sorry, a very attractive young woman just...
It's checking your mail, actually, I think.
Oh, shit.
No, she was tying her shoe.
I was tying her shoe, okay.
You missed it.
Yeah, we're in my living room now, so I'm glad she didn't look in because she'd probably be like, what the fuck is going on?
Streetwalker. That's what it was.
Well,
she was in workout clothes, so.
Yeah, I was going to say, if that's what it was, I think I got some cash.
Milady.
But yeah, so, it's difficult to talk about life's meaning and success because, in my opinion, a lot of those ideas were given to us involuntarily, and they were just created over years and years of bullshit. You had certain roles that people had that involved into a basic form of society and economy, and that just kept going until we have what we have now. We can't say that this could have been the best outcome. We can't say if it was the worst outcome because it's the only outcome we know. So all we can do is just make the best of it that we can now. Now
and course correct.
Yeah, and the problem is,
which is kind of American history.
Yeah, well, and with the
course correction.
The problem is how do we determine what is the best? And that's one reason why I really like looking at Stoicism, because some of these philosophers, dedicated their lives to really understanding what it meant to live a good life. And we don't do that anymore. We think we know what it takes. You have to have a certain amount of money. You got to have a certain job. You got to do this, that, and the other. But we don't really examine it. And if we do, we only do it superficially. We quote fucking pop philosophy things and share memes on Facebook, but we don't actually dig deep into understanding ourselves.
Critical thinking is not a thing.
Yeah.
That is even encouraged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the biggest frustrations I see from other people who practice Buddhism is they take a lot of the teachings at face value and they don't really dig into what it means, because at its heart, and same with Stoicism,
Same with Christianity.
yeah, like you're really digging into deep and dark places in your psyche, and it's hard, and you have to expose yourself to a lot of uncomfortable ideas and ways of thinking, and you really have to examine yourself, and it's grueling. It's not an easy practice, but that's too hard for a lot of people, and they just like to take the fuzzy bits that make them feel nice, and that's how they live, and that's not sustainable.
Because our society is hard to function in.
No,
in a lot of ways, like,
it is.
Like you say, you'd be homeless if you don't have a job, and the amount of money that people make is not enough, really. And you have to keep working harder and harder just to sustain your place in this society.
And when you meet people who really like just stop caring and see how happy they are, they know that they have to have a place to live, but they just are happy with what they can afford. Like I met this dude, he worked at a Waffle House back in Kentucky. He worked there for like 10 years, maybe 15 at this point. He was a host, and he just did a little bit of everything. He had enough money to pay for his place and enough money to feed himself and invest in some of the things he liked doing. And he was happy. He was so happy. He loved working at Waffle House. He didn't want to work anywhere else. He liked the people that he worked with. He liked doing the job that he did. He liked meeting people that came into the restaurant, and he had enough money to support his basic needs, and that's all he needed. And he's probably still there, and that's all you really need. When you realize that, okay, I don't give a fuck about what people think about me. I don't give a fuck about if people, care about what kind of car I drive or the clothes I wear, because that's all bullshit. It means absolutely nothing.
And it keeps you pushing forward and forward, and like to do more and more and consume and consume and
consume and consume and consume. There's so that book I read by Derek Brown called Happy, he talks about how it is evident that having a certain level of financial stability will contribute to your happiness. Because again, if you can feed yourself, clothe yourself, and not have to worry about if your bills are going to get paid, you don't have that stress, But once you reach a certain point, your happiness doesn't get exponentially better the more money you have.
Yeah, I've heard this argument. Something like $70,000 a year or something like that. $80,000. That over that,
there's nothing. Yeah,
you find yourself in a place where you live in a certain area, and your life just gets more and more complicated.
Yeah. Or you're spending money just to spend money, not because you're not investing in things that you're interested in. Like I remember,
or you're working in a certain manner that is just too consuming of your personal time.
And you eventually hit so many years and you snap. Yeah. You have a nervous breakdown or a midlife crisis or whatever. And it's bullshit, And I think that's another problem with living. And I don't want to bash on like capitalist ideas, because it's not necessarily something that's unique to just capitalism. It happens everywhere. People want wealth and fame and notoriety, if that's the proper word. It might not be, but they want nice stuff, and if they don't get it, they feel like they're a failure because they don't have it, or they feel like they're less, or they compare to other people who have more and they're jealous, and it's all this bullshit that their brains create.
We need a chosen one to bring the balance.
Yeah,
I mean, it is a balance. Like